Hello everyone. Today we're going on a little bit of a journey of discovery. You see, coming up to a year or so ago now, my Renault Mégane Classic had a little bit of a braking issue, which I may have referenced a couple of times on this channel, maybe more. And back in January of this year, we actually went ahead, found what the issue was and fixed it. The issue, as it turned out, was a leaky brake cylinder, and to put it this way, it was a fairly simple repair, although it was made difficult by a lot of rust, to say the least, because it was on the near side, and that's the side which gets all the crud and salt and all that other rubbish which rusts metal parts in your car, basically. So yeah, it was fairly simple to replace, but it turned out to be a longer job than I thought it was going to be because of tools and all that other good stuff. But yes, moral of the story, we managed to fix the issue, and today we're going to be having a look at that wheel cylinder to find out exactly what went wrong, because I'm just interested to find out what did go wrong. So, set up behind me on the bench, I've got my little ring light and the little cylinder just located down here. We're going to be taking it apart to find out exactly what went wrong with it. This here is the offending brake cylinder, and imagine this is how it would have looked on the actual car, on the back plate of it. Hands represent the shoes, so that's how it would have looked. But before we actually look into what went wrong with it, we need to firstly understand how it works so we can sort of figure out what could possibly go wrong with it. So if we turn it round, you can see there are 4 holes in the back of it. These 2 here are for the bolts which just hold it onto the actual car. These 2 here are the 2 sort of important ones with it. In fact, this one here is the most important one, because without that, it wouldn't actually work. With this one, this is where the union hose clip point, whatever you may want to call it, that's where that goes into, and you obviously tighten it all up because there is a little thread inside there. Not sure how well the camera's picking that up, but there is a thread inside there. And that little hole in the back is where your brake fluid goes into this actual point, into the actual cylinder itself, basically. This little hole just down here is where you can, well, where you bleed it from, basically. This is where you get all the air bubbles out of the system when you're bleeding the brakes. So it's all quite a simple process, really, when you think about it, but you need to see how these things work, don't we, really? So, yeah. With this, let's just take this apart, shall we? So it just comes off very simply. If I do that, there's a little spring inside there. And then take this side off and put that there. Now this side, the bit I've just taken off, that was the actual offending side on this. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what failed on that. But this is how the cylinder actually looks inside. Now in there is a little hole. Again, I'm not sure how well the camera is picking it up because it is quite dark in there, although I have got the light ring on it. That little hole, as I've already mentioned, is where the brake fluid goes in. And what happens is, press brake pedal, the fluid is pushed into this little cylinder. That fluid builds up and pushes these 2 little bits out, which then pushes on the brake shoes, and then they go against the drum, and that helps the braking system, and that's how it all works. It's all very simple. The spring here helps it stop from going fully into the actual cylinder itself, which is obviously not what you want. But moving on to these little points just here, the spring, that is unimportant to finding out what went wrong. This side is the side that actually failed on it. Let's look at this side here. It's all very simple. You can see roughly how it works. Just got a little seal there, rubber ring of sorts there, metal points. And this little rubber seal here goes on the outside of that. Again, it's all very simple. This side, as I mentioned before several times in this video, is the one that went wrong. And so you can actually see, or at least I hope you can actually see, hoping the camera's picking it up somewhat. Might have to zoom it in a bit. There we go, that's a bit better. This is the side that went wrong, and you can actually see where it failed, because there's a little bit of corrosion, and that, or what that has done, is rubbed against this rubber point seal, whatever you call it, on here, and that's what's failed, because that has allowed just that little bit of brake fluid to come out through that point, and then obviously leak down through here, and then out of the thing. And of course, when you press the brakes, it's all pressurized, so of course it all just shoots straight out. So although that looks like a very minimal failure, that has led to quite literally all of my brake fluid coming out of the car, and that is what went wrong. You may well be sat at home thinking, hey, but Jake, what about all that metal work there at the front? Wouldn't that stop the brake fluid from getting to that little seal first? It's a good thought, but if we have a look at how the cylinder works and how this fits together, put that together, you may not be able to see it fully on camera, but there is a gap of about 1mm in between the actual cylinder and this little part here. And although 1mm doesn't sound like a lot, these sort of things are built to incredibly high tolerances, and of course when liquid is pressurized it can fit through any gap of any size. That's why we have, if I put that down, that's why we have this little seal just there, because what that does, it expands, it retracts, it's able to fit inside this quite firmly and snugly, and it doesn't allow liquid or fluid of any sort to get through. And what's gone wrong with this is either it's rubbed on something here, which is what probably is the actual case with it. It's probably rubbed on that bit of corrosion there and weakened it, and that's what's allowed the fluid to get through. But alternatively, this is an 18-year-old part, so this little bit of rubber here, it may well have just worn out. And of course, as I've already mentioned, it was on the near side of the car, which is prone to getting all the rubbish and crud off the side of the road. So that is exactly the sort of thing that makes parts like this fail. So what I can imagine is this part, although it doesn't actually look too bad, this has just failed because of age. And this is exactly 100% what the problem was with the Renault. It seems already quite simple at the end of it, doesn't it? But little simple things like that are often what makes it fail. But if you think about it as well, this little part here, you'd think, hey, that would be, what, a 50p, 20p, maybe even a 10p part to replace. Couldn't you just get a new one of those? Quite frankly, yes, probably you could if you looked hard enough to find one, but I couldn't find one for this specific type of wheel cylinder. And to be honest, given it was 18 years old, I'm not too worried about spending the money on a brand new wheel cylinder because, well, what else might go wrong with it? The other side might go wrong. These little rubber caps on the end, they could end up going wrong. It's just all little things like that, isn't it, really, at the end of the day, which makes parts fail. But there we go. These are the things that actually, well, these are the things. This is the thing that went wrong with it and stopped it from being driven for half a year, maybe slightly more. The actual repair on this wasn't too difficult to do apart from actually getting this old cylinder off of the car, but given at the time I wasn't quite sure how things were going to work in terms of my job, because I lost at the time due to coffee boy virus and things like that, so I wasn't in the best position financially to be spending money on little parts like this on cars that are about 20 years old, which quite frankly, though it may be rare, it's not worth a whole lot of money. So at the time I was rather questioning my position in terms of work and whether it was worth spending money on keeping the Renault in the first place, but things have now worked out and it was worth it by January at least, so that's why I fixed it, and this is why it has now got a new wheel cylinder, and this is exactly what went wrong. Before I end this video, just imagine this is flat on the, well, on the actual cylinder itself like this one sort of is, but just imagine what happens is liquid goes in there, pushes that little centre bit forwards, and that pushes it against the brake shoes, and that's what pushes it against the actual brake drum itself. It all works rather simply, really. And there it is, we have managed to achieve today's objective with this video. We have managed to find out exactly what went wrong with the part. As it turned out, it was something very simple, very small, very really insignificant, but it did lead to a large consequence on the car. It led to a complete and utter fluid failure of the brakes, which obviously you don't want that when you're driving, you don't want your brakes to not work, do you? But you think about it, really it's quite a simple part to essentially replace at the end of the day, but to someone who's not necessarily a car person, it may well lead to the end of their car, especially if it's one that's quite old, maybe 20 plus years old, whatever it may be. Not everybody's got the time, the skills, experience, or even the will to try and find out what went wrong with their car in the first place, but I thought I'd try something new with this sort of video format. Let me know down below, what did you think of this type of video of trying to find out exactly what went wrong with the parts that failed? Do you like it? If you did, let me know by leaving a like on the well, big blue like button essentially. And of course, if you have enjoyed this video, please consider to subscribe to the channel, because of course subscribing, it really helps me out and it helps get the channel out there and known. And of course, if you want to see more of this kind of video, especially with car-based shenanigans and content, feel free to press that notification button because it'll let you know every time a new video goes live. Anyway, I think that's it for this week, so until the very next one, guys, I shall say farewell.